All right, today we're going to talk about something we all deal with constantly, our emotions. But we're going to look at them in a way you've probably never thought of before. We're going to uncover the hidden logic behind our moral emotions and what they're really doing for us in our social lives. So let's just jump right in with a huge question. We have this habit, right? We label emotions like anger or shame as bad, and things like empathy or awe as good. But what if that's completely missing the point? What if those so-called bad emotions are actually, well, absolutely essential for us to function as social beings? To really get this, we first need to be clear on what a moral emotion even is. It's basically any emotion that isn't just about you. It's tied to the well-being of your group, your community, or even just one other person. You can almost say these emotions are the very glue that holds our social world together. And here is the idea that changes everything. Instead of asking if an emotion feels good, we need to start asking if it does good. And that little shift in perspective is huge. An emotion might feel awful in the moment, but it could be doing incredibly important work to strengthen our relationships and our communities. So, here's where we're headed. We're going to take a new look at the power of anger. Then we'll uncover the surprising upside of shame. After that, we'll get into the trouble with empathy, and we'll wrap up with the emotions that truly inspire us. Let's dive in. First up is anger. Now, we usually think of it as just, this destructive, aggressive force. But what if its main job isn't about lashing out at all? And that's the big contrast, right? Our gut reaction to anger is to think of yelling, fighting, getting even. But its real moral function, its purpose, is often about repair, about pushing for positive social change. It's what psychologists call an approach emotion. It actually pushes us towards a problem so we can fix it. And think about it, that fire you feel when you see something that's just plain wrong, that's anger motivating you to act. Research actually shows it's a huge driver for things like signing petitions or joining a protest. And in our own lives, anger is often the spark for those really hard conversations we need to have to fix a relationship. It's a signal that says, hey, a line was crossed here and something needs to change for the better. Okay, let's move on to an even trickier one. Shame. Ugh. It's that horrible, sinking feeling of being exposed, of being flawed. We will do almost anything to avoid feeling it. But is it possible that it can actually do good? Well, first we have to pull it apart from guilt. They're not the same thing at all. Guilt is focused on an action. It says, I did a bad thing. And that usually leads us to apologize, to try and fix it. But shame is about your whole self. It says, I am bad. And that just makes you want to hide. So guilt tells us what we should do, while shame, it tells us what we absolutely should not do. But here's the really fascinating twist. Researchers say not all shame is created equal. There's something called image shame, which is all about worrying about your reputation, how you look to other people. But then there's moral shame, and that's different. That's the feeling you get when you believe you've genuinely violated a moral code that you hold dear. And in that distinction, that's where we find the potential for good. So here's the bottom line. When that feeling of shame is tied to a real moral failure, and, this is key, when we think the situation can be fixed, that painful feeling can actually be a powerful motivator to change our ways and become better people. It's not about the feeling itself, it's about what you do with it. Okay, so we've seen the good side of bad emotions. Now let's completely flip the script and talk about the trouble with a supposedly good one, empathy. It seems like it should be the ultimate moral emotion, right? But it's a lot more complicated than that. First, it's really important to get our terms straight here, because people mix these up all the time. Empathy is feeling with someone. You literally take on their emotion, you feel their pain. Compassion, though, is feeling for someone. You're concerned about their suffering, but you're not necessarily drowning in it yourself. And that distinction leads to a really interesting puzzle. If empathy, feeling someone else's pain, is so morally good, then why do study after study show that people will actively avoid it when given the choice? Well, here's why. For one, let's be honest. Empathy is exhausting. It takes a ton of mental and emotional energy to truly share in someone else's suffering, and it can easily lead to burnout. And second, our empathy is incredibly biased. It's way easier to feel for people who are like us, and much, much harder to empathize with people we see as rivals or outsiders. And that's exactly why compassion is often a more reliable, more sustainable motivator for doing good. So let's finish up on a really positive note and talk about the other praising emotions. These are those amazing feelings we get when we see other people do something incredible. The first one is called elevation. You know that feeling, that warm, open, uplifting sensation in your chest when you see someone perform an act of amazing kindness or courage? That's elevation. It's the polar opposite of feeling disgusted. Instead of being repelled by something bad, you feel drawn in and inspired by something good. And then there's awe. This is that feeling of wonder you get when you're faced with something so vast it just blows your mind, like looking up at a perfectly clear starry night sky. It has a way of making you feel small, but in a really good way, by connecting you to something so much bigger than yourself. So what makes these moral emotions? Well, look at what they do to us. When people experience awe or elevation, they consistently become more helpful, more generous, and less focused on themselves. These feelings build a sense of connection to everyone else, and they make us want to be better people ourselves, to live up to the amazing things we just saw. And Jonathan Haidt has this perfect metaphor for it. He calls them a hive switch. It's like, for a moment, they flip us out of our default, self-interested mode and into a more collective mindset, where we start thinking about the good of the group. So, if you take one thing away from all of this, let it be this. Our emotions aren't simply good or bad. That's the wrong way to look at them. They are sophisticated, finely tuned tools that have evolved to help us navigate an incredibly complex social world. Anger guards our boundaries, shame tells us when a relationship needs repair, and awe connects us to something bigger. And that really just leaves us with one last question to think about. After seeing this hidden logic, which one of your own emotions are you going to start seeing in a completely new light? Thanks for digging into this with us.